It is another winning edition of the Kansas City Chiefs Instant Reaction Show on 580 Sports Talk, YouTube channel, and of course, WIBW News on Facebook. The Kansas City Chiefs are 3-0, victorious tonight on Sunday Night Football as they defeat the Atlanta Falcons 22-17. The gang's all here. Dan Lucero, Brendan Dzwierzynski, Spencer Dupuis here to break down what we just saw. And folks, it's another game that was close, down to the wire. Nick Bolton makes the game-winning play. I'll go to each of you for a big takeaway from tonight, and I'll go first. And the big takeaway here is that there's really only one opponent that matters when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs, and it's the Kansas City Chiefs. Nobody makes life harder on the Chiefs than the Chiefs can make it on themselves. This should have been a runaway, coast, play the JV 2-3 score victory in tonight's game, given how efficiently the offense moved the ball for the better part of the night, and given how well the defense played for the better part of the night. Unfortunately, it was obviously not that. It came down to the final possession of the game and a 4th down and inches play that the Chiefs had to stuff. But the Chiefs will look back at this and think this should have been a lot easier. We shouldn't have had Patrick Mahomes almost blowing out his knee trying to eat up time and kneel out the clock in the final seconds. This should have been a lot more comfortable, and it would be if we could clean up our own mistakes. That's my big takeaway from this one. A lot of self-inflicted wounds, but the Chiefs good enough, as they so often are, to survive them. Brendan, what did you take away from tonight?
Yeah, my number one takeaway is that the Falcons are idiots. From top to bottom, the entire organization is filled with morons. What are you doing? Why is that the way you're ending this game? We'll talk plenty of Chiefs here, and I'll get to them in a minute. But good God, guys, how in the world is that how you end that game? Every single time they tried to run something horizontally on that final drive, it didn't work. Now the Chiefs are putting 44 dudes in the box, and you think that's the right time for your super overrated offensive line to block an outside zone sweep on the final meaningful play of the game? How dumb can you possibly be? So that's my biggest takeaway. That team is filled with idiots. They're not going anywhere, and they don't deserve to go anywhere this year because Christ almighty, that was awful. Pardon me, but goodness gracious, I know it's the Lord's Day. Secondly, for this Chiefs team, is if there was any doubt left that Rashee Rice could be the guy, a number one receiver, erase it from your mind because he is. And if Travis Kelce is going to be as ineffective as he has been throughout the first 3 weeks of the season, granted, if you listen to 580 Sports Talk this week, you would not be surprised that he wasn't effective in this game against that secondary and that defense, but I digress. If you had any doubts left about Rashee Rice, forget about him. He is that dude. He's got the ability, the hands, the separation, the smarts in this offense. He is a playmaker. He is a legitimate number one wide receiver for this team, and they're going to end up needing it. The complementary pieces fit well together, but without Hollywood Brown, who is going to shoulder at least some of that load, no pun intended, it is going to be imperative that Rashee Rice continues to play at a high level like this. I know the Falcons defense isn't great, even though some of the matchups worked well against the Chiefs offense, but he is that dude. He is that guy, and he's only going to continue to get better over the next few weeks, the rest of the season, the next couple of seasons for this Chiefs team, and he showed why you should be able to trust him tonight.
All right, Spencer, what do you got?
Yeah, Rashee Rice, my big Chief pick, by the way. We'll talk about that more on 580 Sports Talk tomorrow. What I have to say is kind of trying to refute Brendan's Travis Kelce take. Well, yeah, he has only caught, 8 passes on the season. He had 4 for 30. When you have Rashee Rice coming into his own like he is, do you really need your tight end to be your number one target? I don't think so necessarily. I was hoping he scored a touchdown tonight. Would have helped my parlay and helped me win 250, but that didn't happen. My biggest takeaway in this is the secondary receiving. You get Rashee Rice 12 catches, but meaningful catches for guys like Juju Smith-Schuster, Xavier Worthy moving the sticks a couple times, Samaje Perine getting involved in the pass game. I think they were meaningful secondary options for the Chiefs tonight, not just like 5 yards there, 5 yards there. There's a lot of first downs that were big besides Rashee Rice getting them.
We can focus on the positives to start, and we might as well. Mark has alluded in the YouTube live chat. We welcome those of you who are watching us live again on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. Give us a subscribe if you haven't already. It was a mostly miserable weekend for Kansas City and Kansas sports fans.
Y'all say.
So, we were very close to having the most funeral dirge-like edition of 580 Sports Talk we maybe have ever had. Thankfully, thanks to the Chiefs, we don't have to do that. We can have a little positive as a treat. So let's focus on that. I think you make a good point, Spencer. Good balance to the offense tonight. Carson Steele looked up to the task of being running back number one for the time being while Isaiah Pacheco is on the shelf. Ran hard, ran effectively, set the Chiefs up in good second and medium, second and short situations, and helped the Chiefs piece together some long, effective drives in that first half. And then the defense. They give up the touchdown on the scripted drive. There's a miscommunication, a wide open receiver. But again, that's the script. That first drive of the game is a scripted drive. It ought to be a touchdown. Really, you ought to be disappointed if you don't score on the scripted drive. Outside of that, you have a drive that only continued because of a weak roughing the passer call. Weak, but also one that they call. Like, I'm not saying that was a bad call, just saying it was a little soft, but it is the kind of flag they throw on the defensive player, on Chris Jones, that turns what should have been a 3-and-out into one play later. There's a 50-yard completion, and that ends up being a touchdown drive. And the Chiefs only gave up 3 other points. I thought largely they were outstanding against the run. They flowed to the ball so well, completely shut down the outside zone that the Eagles the Falcons like to run so much. The Chiefs did a great job getting the perimeter and slowing that run game down and making the play action less effective as a result. And then they came up with the stop they needed, a stop on 4th and goal with about 3 minutes to play. And then the stop at the final play of the game, an absolutely knuckleheaded play call, a play call that had no chance. And Nick Bolton flashed through and made an unbelievable play. Brendan, you're muted.
Stupid. No, that was intentional. That was intentional. I wanted to make sure I didn't talk over you. No,
I wanted to hear you.
It was preposterously stupid. Let's not sugarcoat it. Calling it knucklehead makes Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson out to be far smarter than they are. Idiotic, stupid, idiotic, churlish, childish, whatever word you want to use. Knucklehead is far too light of a punishment to give to those two with the way they bungled the end of this game.
So really good stuff, largely from the defense. Other than the last drive of the game, or rather the second to last drive of the game, I thought they defended the run exceptionally, and they made, once again, the big plays when they needed to. They got after Cousins in a way that they had to. They upset his timing. They intercepted him once. I thought that was exactly the kind of game the Chiefs were capable of playing defensively, and it's the kind of game they played. And we're just getting used to, I think, this level of play from this defense week in and week out, coming up big in the clutch. They do it again, and this time it's Nick Bolton, who had dinged up his back and was kind of iffy to even come back in the game, and he comes flying downhill to make the game-saving play. Once again, clutch performance by this great defense.
Yeah, and I think it's Nick Bolton himself. He had 8 tackles in this one to lead the Chiefs team. I feel like there were some points in this game where maybe he was a little overpowered, but at other points, he was the guy doing the overpowering and being the guy there to stop the play within a couple yards of the line of scrimmage. And that's the kind of play you need from Nick Bolton, who has elevated himself over the last year.
Yeah, and I think overall it was a really strong game for Bolton. I think the one black mark is the fact that he, that blitz pickup by Bijan Robinson for the Falcons. By the way, some of y'all need to learn what holding is, because that was not holding. But I digress. Other than that, really strong game for Bolton. This was the kind of game you have Nick Bolton for, right? Like the entire point. We need you to go make the smart play. We need you to be in the right spot at the right time and make the right play. And that's what he did. That's the entire reason that you have a guy like this. That's the entire reason behind the hype for Nick Bolton, right? Is that he might not be the best athlete. He might not be perfect in coverage. There might be some limitations, but he's smart. He knows the defense. Like, nobody knows the defense other than Steve Spagnuolo better than Nick Bolton. That's the reason you have him. I thought he played really well in this game. I thought the coverage for the most part was pretty good. Man, anytime that there is a defensive pass interference call, and I'm sorry for even thinking of ref talk here, but that there's defensive pass interference when Trent McDuffie is guarding Ray McLeod. Like, if you're an official, you've got to look yourself in the mirror and say, nah, I'm probably wrong about this. Like, come on, let's weigh the scales here and look at these two players. You have to think, nah, that's probably not happening. I probably don't need to throw a flag there. But I thought the coverage was good. I loved the energy from George Karlaftis in this game. Not that he ever does anything but show a ton of energy every time he's on the field. It was a solid game. I mean, Atlanta's got playmakers, and other than Fourth and Drake London, they really, for much of the game, were kind of limited. I thought it was a very solid game overall. Probably not the best that the Chiefs have been all year or in recent memory, but hard to find too many things to complain about at this point with that unit anyway.
One more defensive thought for me. I got to get in the shout out to my guy, Najee Johnson. At the end of the game, coming up, reading the play, and making up for what he missed in the first quarter. He gave up that touchdown, miscommunication, not knowing where he was going to go following the guy. But then when it mattered, he made a big tackle behind the line of scrimmage on a screen play in the time that he's getting to play defense, because he doesn't get to play defense all that often, mainly playing special teams lately, getting some plays in. But when he's playing, he made up for the mistake that he made in the beginning, and that's big.
Our 580 Sports Talk regular listeners will know. Marshall reference, finish your beer. That was the positive, I think, what we saw on defense for the better part of the night. Offensively, I thought there was a lot of good stuff like under the hood. I'm sure like a lot of the advanced numbers will be really kind to the Chiefs because they were pretty efficient running the ball. I think their success rate on first down was really, really high. There were obviously some huge individual performances led by Rashee Rice, his 12 catches for 110 yards. But a couple of things here. Number one, we're now up to 4 interceptions in 3 weeks for Patrick Mahomes, and they've all been his fault. That was a terrible underthrow on the ball. He throws that in the back corner of the end zone. It's got to be where only Noah Gray can get it, and he underthrew it. And I thought there were a lot of underthrows on that opening drive. We grade Mahomes on a curve. We should. He's the best in the league. He's maybe the best. I say he's the best we've ever seen. So we grade him on a curve, and rightfully so. That's a C-minus game, I thought, from Mahomes. A lot of mistakes, a lot of missed throws. I just didn't think he was all that sharp. And I think late in the game, he suffered because his receivers let him down a little bit. You had Kelsey's drop on third down that could have kept the drive going. And then you had Xavier Worthy just stop his route on the crossing route that would have been, I mean, that's ball game right there. If Worthy catches that pass, the Chiefs go and they win the game, and we're not even talking about a defensive stand at the end. But by and large, I just didn't think it was a great game for Mahomes tonight. You guys see what I'm seeing, that maybe he's just not as accurate, it feels like, this early stage of the season. The ball's not where he needs it to go. And I wonder if part of the reason is, I think it's certainly the part of the reason why the passing game feels much more horizontal than it typically is with the Chiefs, is because they're having to make up for the fact that left tackle's a turnstile. And I got to give Wanya Morris credit because he did play well, and he may have won the starting left tackle job with his performance tonight, but it's still not the level of left tackle play that the Chiefs have even gotten from guys like Donovan Smith and Orlando Brown Jr. in recent years. And I wonder if that's in the back of Mahomes' mind, that maybe he's got to rush throws, or maybe he's got to be too fine, get the ball out earlier than he needs to, because he can't trust that play on his blind side.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point to bring up, Dan. I mean, it's as good of a theory as anything we have at this point, because, I mean, he hasn't been especially sharp. He was better, at least if we're looking at this from a statistical standpoint, this week than he was last week. And I'm not just talking box score stuff. I'm looking right now at the advanced numbers from this game. Like EPA per play, Mahomes and Cousins were right about equal in this one. Total expected points added, right about equal. He's not throwing the ball downfield on average very far at all. I mean, that's been the case for Mahomes for, well, all of last season, so far all of this season, and frankly, a lot of 2022 as well. That's just been kind of part of this Chiefs offense for a while, but he was fine. He was okay. Expected QBR, that's ESPN's passer rating metric, 59. That's slightly above average. 50 is normalized to league average. So, I mean, he was fine. The statistics say he was okay today, but I mean, as much as you know how much I love to rely on stats to add context to things and to make a point, to make an argument, the eye test is also extremely important, and all you have to do is watch these 4 quarters or watch the last 2 weeks, and you can very easily say, yeah, we're not used to this guy. Like, this isn't even the Mahomes we've seen from last year's postseason, last year's regular season for a lot of the time. Like, it just looks a little bit off. I think your idea, Dan, that it could be the offensive line play, specifically the left tackle play, I think that could make some amount of sense. I don't know if this is like extended preseason for him and he feels like he's trying things out and seeing what he can or cannot get away with. Maybe that's a part of it. We had somebody mentioning here, Gabe, in the 580 Sports Talk and his reaction show YouTube comments. I wonder if the Chiefs do this on purpose to give teams a false sense of confidence going into a game. At least that's what I'll use to mask the frustration for not scoring what should be 35 plus. I understand every point Gabe is making there in that comment, but it does almost feel like, can I throw this ball like this? Can I throw a ball at this trajectory, this arm slot, this kind of velocity, and make it work to Noah Gray in this spot? Normally, that's what guys work on in training camp and the preseason. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know what the exact answer is, and I'm sure we're not going to get anything straight from either the quarterback, the head coach, whatever, over the next few weeks either. But it is a little bit worrisome that they haven't gotten those things neatened out, figured out. The flip side of that, of course, is, well, the offense wasn't crisp last year. They went on to win the Super Bowl. So maybe it's not that big of a deal. I'm not really sure how to approach it. I think this offense has some things they need to figure out. But I also would like to mention this, and we'll dive into this more on 580 Sports Talk coming up on Monday when we recap this game. I gave you a stat this past week about the run game for the Chiefs, and it became, I thought, less important when Isaiah Pacheco got hurt and we knew they were going to have to rely on Carson Steele and Samaje Perine and maybe at some point late stage Kareem Hunt. Maybe it wouldn't be that effective, but the series conversion rate, the SCR, how often a series of first through fourth down is turned into another first down or a touchdown. Last week, well over league average, well over 85%, 85.7%, in fact. They were able to convert first through fourth down into another first down on series that began with a run play. This week, through this game with the Atlanta Falcons, 81.2%. Yet again, way above league average. The Chiefs have made a killing in the last 6 years on being the team that passes above expectation. But guys, right now, against the defenses the Chiefs are facing, rely on those running backs, even the lesser talented ones, to set things up for the passing game. Because when the Chiefs do that, it works almost every time. Stay consistent. It's what I told you guys on Sports Talk this week. Don't get greedy. Be patient. The big plays will get there. You just have to wait for your moment, wait for your spots. I hope we're going to get to that point with the Chiefs because they're there. They just can't rush it. And that goes for the play calling as well as quarterback Patrick Mahomes.
One other point I want to make before we wrap things up here, and Spencer, you spoke to this. That's why I want to loop you back in here. You talked about, with Rashee Rice emerging and doing what he's doing, contributing the way he's contributing in the passing game, it has made it a little easier to stomach the lack of production from Travis Kelce, who matched his season reception total tonight with 4 more catches, only 30 yards. Did have that 17-yarder in the second half. That kind of looked like vintage Kelce, and I'm sure there's more of that. I'm sure there's more of that ahead.
Well, he had that ball knocked out of his hand.
Yeah, he had that ball knocked out too. But the point I want to make is where they need him, and Gabe makes this point as well in the YouTube comments, is he wanted to see him more in the red zone and those critical third downs. That's where they need Travis Kelce. Because right now the red zone offense is not firing on all cylinders. They had another missed opportunity. Anytime they're kicking a field goal with the ball inside the 5, it makes me want to scream. It makes me want to cry. It's abhorrent, and I don't want to see it. And the reason we're seeing it right now is they can't get anything going in the red zone. And the guy who's always there in the red zone is 87. And it's not like, oh, well, maybe they're paying more attention to him now. No, they've been doubling him in the red zone. They've been trying to take him away in the red zone for a decade, and he still finds ways to score touchdowns. Where is he now? That's the guy that I think if the Chiefs can get going inside the 20, inside the 10, find ways, run that silly little screen pass, that underhanded stuff, the behind-the-back pass. I don't care. Get 87 the ball in the red zone.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you there, and I think that it's something that's coming along as the season goes. Obviously, 2 catches, 4 catches, trying to get him mixed in a little bit more. I mean, they were talking about it all over the broadcast tonight, and I think it's something that nobody can explain why he's not, getting involved more. But as the season goes, things will get better, and we're talking about all these negative for the Chiefs, but here they are sitting at 3-0, undefeated, getting ready to open up the division upcoming weekend against the Chargers. So 3-0 headed into the first divisional game. A lot to clean up, right? But they're still 3-0.
Yeah, a lot of teams would love to be in the position the Chiefs are in, even with the things that the Chiefs can be working on. 3-0, one of only 4 teams in the NFL 3-0. The Bills can be the 5th, I believe, if they win tomorrow night. Is that correct?
I believe you are correct about that, Dan.
Yeah, so the Bills could be the 5th, but there are 4 other teams, and the 2-time defending Super Bowl champions are one of them after a 22-17 win over the Falcons on Sunday Night Football. We'll recap this in even more detail on tomorrow's edition of 580 Sports Talk, coming to you from 3 to 6 Central Time on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9 in Topeka, and on the same video channels, our Facebook page, WIBW News, and our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. In addition to a lot of Chiefs talk on a Victory Monday, we'll get to all of the other unpleasantness from the weekend that was in Kansas and Kansas City sports. And oh my God, is there a lot of unpleasantness. We'll get there, but first we'll celebrate and toast a 3-0 start for the two-time defending champs. We hope you'll join us tomorrow, and we thank you for joining us tonight on this Chiefs Instant Reaction. For Brendan Dzwierzynski and Spencer Dupuis, I'm Dan Lucero saying good night